just learned the A7 III has a touchscreen for focus. I've been using this camera for over a year. You live and you learn. Sometimes you'll learn a little late.
The Obsessive DP.
Guys, welcome back to the Obsessive DP, the show where we talk about high-level, industry-grade, high production value, lighting, camera, tips, tricks from some on-set, high-level experience. And I need a little more of this. That is too white. Look at that bounce. That's beautiful. That looks so good. I'm getting distracted by my own beauty. So this episode is all about interviews. 5 super common mistakes to avoid while lighting interviews. It's all about lights. We could talk about cameras and angles and all these other DP related things. We're just gonna talk about lighting. And the first thing is not lighting interesting. Whether the light on their face is just the same, there's no key, there's no fill, or there's no back, or there's no edge. I've done way too many interviews that I can count like that, but after you filmed about 200 plus interviews, you start seeing things, your eye starts developing. So I've realized that you always want some sort of edge, some sort of interesting light edging your person like this. Ding. Look at my hand. My hand is like crazy edged out of the background, right? It's too much for my hand, but it looks nice. Let me center up here. Yeah. That's the center. So that's what you want to do. You want the light to make your subject look interesting. And there's so many ways to do that. There's a scratch that you put on the downside, or you could do it, obviously, a hair light. That's a super common way to make that 3-point lighting. The key, the fill, and the hair. That edges out the hair a little bit, and it's a very classic look. It's overdone. I would say it's definitely overdone, but it looks good. And the reason that it's done so much is because it looks good. So, obviously, on screen, we have an example of a flat light, nothing interesting, and then we'll have an example of a hair light. Or we'll have an example of a scratch or an edge, which is really the same thing. It could be a hair or a scratch. You see how it looks better? It's kind of funny. Some people have said that our interview setups with a hair light or a strong hair light or a strong backlight and then with a really shallow depth of field, a lot of people think that's a green screen. It's not a green screen, it's just very out of focus background and then a nice edge edging you out of the background. It almost feels like you're edged so far out of the background that the background kind of looks fake. So that's something to watch out for. You don't want too strong of an edge light or you don't want too fake looking of an edge light. It's kind of up to your eye. It's kind of up to you to figure out what looks fake and what doesn't. And how you get there is a ton of experience. Number 2, lighting the wrong side of the face. Little hairs are freaking me out. I feel like there's someone there. I've done this so much. I didn't know there was a wrong side of the face to light until I realized that lighting on the correct side of the face looks so much better. I have so many examples of lighting on the wrong side of the face. Now you may be asking, what's the wrong side? Well, if you look at this interview here, the side that's more to the camera is this one, right? So the light is actually hitting me on this side of my face. This is where the light is mostly hitting. That is the correct side of the face. It looks better when your camera is faced into the down side of the face and then the brighter side of the face is on the other side. It just looks better. It's not that one way is right and one way is wrong. You can look back through history and look at art and paintings and they do this. This is a century-old practice. This is not something that we've figured out the last 10 years. Here's an example here. Here's the interview setup. You see how, obviously it's a little overexposed, but you see how the dark side of the face is actually on the opposite side of where a camera is facing. Our camera is shooting right on this side of the face, right? This is bigger in the frame. His left side is a little less big and it's darker. This is not what you want to do. This is the opposite. As you look at it, it just doesn't look great. Comparing it to one that's lit correctly, something about it looks better. Obviously it's softer light, but something about it just looks better if you compare them side by side. Now, unfortunately, I've done this so many times, so probably all of the interviews in this job, which we did about 85 interviews for just this job over a couple years of filming. Actually, this is just really flat. All this is super flat. You see how it's just not interesting at all? Look at that, flat. It might be tough to find one of these that even has a brighter side of the face. The fill is very strong. This was pretty good. This is higher key in a fill. Again, it's the wrong side. The key should be on this side. It's obviously brighter on this side. It should be brighter on this side. You know, probably all these interviews are like that. Anyway, all of these examples I'm showing right now, it's the wrong side of the face lit. Now you know. I didn't know when I was lighting these scenes, but now I do, and now you do, because you've seen how it looks better to light the far side of the face. Before we move on, I've always liked this frame. I know it's not an interview frame. We had this even in our highlight reel for Knack Knack at one point, and it's just, I love how her face looks in the shot. Clearly, the window is a huge source of light behind her, which creates just a beautiful light on her. But you see how the camera is looking into the downside of her face, and the opposite side of her face is lit beautifully. It looks so good. I didn't know why it looked that good. Now that I look at it, I have a better understanding because we were shooting into the downside of the face. Moving on to number 3. Another mistake to avoid is using hard light instead of soft light. Thankfully, this is something I learned early on, which actually led to me lighting things too evenly, because if you're just using soft light, it could be a super even source, and then it's even across the face. Let's look at this shot here. So this shot here, it's pretty hard. You see how it's kind of just harsh? Her face looks pretty harsh. Look at this shadow on her hair. It's very defined. Again, we lit the wrong side of her face. It doesn't feel cinematic. It doesn't feel beautiful. It just feels like hard light. And all of these are the exact same way. I believe we used like a 1x1 panel, and a 1x1 is not going to give you beautiful light. It's going to be hard. Even if you soften the crap out of it, it's still just too small of a source. You need a big soft source to create soft light. Clearly, it's in the name. So let's compare that. Let's contrast that to a video we did recently. This one here, actually like this setup. So this was actually a book light. Look at how soft this is. I don't even see a glasses shadow. It's a tiny one right here, a glasses shadow. That is an extremely soft light, maybe even too soft. We have a nice scratch backlight here. We have just an extreme soft. Look at the giant white in his eyes. This was an M18 pounding into a 6x ultra bounce, pounding back through a quarter grid, and it's one of my favorite setups we've ever done. This was the same shoot. We couldn't get as close. You see how he has multiple white points in his eyes. We couldn't get as close as the previous example due to just the way the office was set up, but still extremely soft. No shadow in sight. You know, you can see some back here, but they're really soft. They totally look like daylight. This was a similar setup, M18 pounding through a half grid, and it created this frame. It's great. He even has a nice edge here. Beautiful. One more. This was my other favorite. This one here, similar setup, but it's actually 2 of these panels through a 6x silk. It gives them just this amazing eye light. We get it as close as we can to the subject without getting in frame, and the 6x and the DP Lumi light mats shooting through that looks so good. M18 back here making these nice shafts. If we had some haze in here, it would knock your socks off. It would look so good. Our edge light's a little weak here, but you can see the scratch here on his hat. This is also one of my favorite frames that we've done recently. So good. So use that soft light. Why would you use hard light when you can use soft light? Look at the difference. It's a huge difference. Moving on to number 4. This is gonna be difficult for you guys that have a smaller kit. Maybe you show up to an interview with 1 or 2 lights and they're LEDs, they're not super high powered. A lot of times you think you have to rely on house lights. I understand if you have a camera that's not super light sensitive, you can't crank that ISO, and you have slower lenses, I get it. But do what you can to not use house lights. It just never looks as good. Pretty much all of these examples have house lights. Funny, we actually did 2 different videos for this school, and the first time we used house lights, the second time we did it, and we'll show you the difference here. House lights. House lights. I think all of these have house lights. House lights, house lights. Okay, so we used house lights in all these, and it feels just even and then sharp in weird ways, and then we have hard shadows in weird ways. It just doesn't look as good. All right, same type of video. A few years later for the same company, we started using larger sources, and we didn't use house lights. Look at the difference. That's a huge difference. Huge difference. Look at them side by side. We turned off the lights in this one. We just used the lights we had. This one is one of my favorite setups of the day. It's a little down back there, but it makes your eye focus on the subject. I wish we had some ND here. The sun's hitting this, it's too hot. But this looks nice on the window. We had a light shooting through here, making these nice lines, but it looks so much better to not have house lights. So I know it's hard when you're in the heat of the moment. Again, another great frame. And when you're in the heat of the moment, you don't know what to do, you're doing too many jobs, and then you keep the house lights on because your LEDs aren't powerful enough. Just turn them off, see what it looks like. Maybe even record a frame, take a moment, play it back, look at it, go, okay, it's a little more grainy, but does it look better? I'll answer for you. It looks better. It totally looks better. Absolutely. Turn the house lights off. Period. Moving on to number 5. The 5th mistake is not Manicuring the Eye Light. This is what this channel is all about, the obsessive DP. Being obsessed with everything in the frame, including something that's very small but extremely important. The eyes are the window to the soul. We need to manicure the eye light. All right, let's look at an example. This shot here. What looks off about this shot? You tell me. Comment down below. Why is there two lights? Two very defined lights very close together in her eye. Something feels wrong about it. Like she looks like an alien, or she just looks like she's in a weird place that has two lights next to each other. Maybe two windows next to each other, but they don't look like windows. Look at my eye. It just has one giant circle in it. I think it looks good. Anyway, this doesn't look great. I know it's very nitpicky, but if you fix this, you just put some diffusion over it so it feels like one light. That's all you needed to do. You have two lights side by side. You put some diffusion over both, one sheet of diffusion, pound them both into it. Then you have one source. Then you have one light in the eye, and it looks so much better. I'm telling you, it looks so much better. Now, I don't mind multiple points of light if it serves the creative purpose. I think it could look good. I think you could have a big light up on top, like your nice key, and then a nice little accent light on the lower side of the eye. Round sources are always better. It's more natural. What shape is the sun? It's round. It's the biggest light example we see every day as humans. I would go with round light, and I would just try to have one big source in the eye. It always looks better. Obviously, for creative reasons in a narrative, you want multiple types of light. You want someone to look damaged. Maybe you don't want to see light at all. Maybe you want to see multiple lights. Maybe you want to see some Astera tubes in the eyes. It could look really maniacal. So there's a lot of ways to manicure the eye light. For interviews, I usually use a big source. I think it looks the best in the eye. But for other means, there's so many different shapes. It should be a canvas that you are adding strokes to, because that's what we do as creatives and DPs. We're creating a beautiful image, and you want to be obsessive about all the little minutia of every aspect of filmmaking. All right, this is a good example. So this is just a home. We were a little underlit. We just had a traveling light package. This is in Canada. So we didn't have everything you want, but you can obviously, there's multiple points of light in her eye. Just something about it doesn't feel right, doesn't look right, doesn't make us feel good about them. Maybe it makes us feel a little worried, like you're not telling the truth. There's so many ways to unpack creative choices like that. And this wasn't a creative choice. This was just not being prepared. Why is my focus off? Oh, there it is. Hey. So that's one example. Actually, her eye looks good. It's just one source. See how much better that looks? Just compare them side by side. Something feels off about her. I trust her. Pretty much with every interview, you want to trust the interviewee. So if the eye light is a big source of a viewer being able to trust your interviewee, you better make the eye light look good. This one's a nightmare. Look at how many points of light are in there. Does it make you want to trust him? Does it make you want to listen to him? I mean, look at him now. When I've manicured it, obviously this is Photoshop. It's completely different side by side. It's weird that something that small, obviously it's tiny in frame, but what are we looking at when we talk to someone? What are we looking at when we listen to someone? These guys, make them look good. I know I sound crazy, but this is gonna make you guys a better filmmaker. You will go far if you follow these rules and you stop making the common mistakes that we just ran through. Hope that was helpful. Comment down below if you have any questions or anything you want us to uncover or unpack or talk more about. Hope you guys like and subscribe. Stay obsessed.